this is the September 8th Strategic Plan Committee meeting. We're starting the meeting at 6:07 p.m. In attendance, we're doing a virtual meeting. In attendance, we have John Wynn, Jay Gross, Justin Thomas, Marlene Batista, Kristen Tierney, and Andrew Gasefa. The meeting agenda was posted on the town website. The public is listening in on the conference bridge line, and we'll go through the agenda. And by going through the agenda, I think I can substantially update everyone on just kind of where we are and where we might want to try and go. I'm certainly interested in everyone's, impressions and thoughts regarding the draft plan, and to see what we need to do to maybe iterate it slightly further and then begin to try and socialize it to whatever extent we can. So first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of March 10th, 2020. I circulated those this afternoon, and they've been posted up on the town website as well. Any questions or comments regarding the minutes? So if someone can make a motion to approve.
I make a motion.
I make a motion. This is Marlene.
Okay.
Second.
And I think Justin seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Kristen?
Aye.
Okay, so we have minutes were approved. No dissents, no abstentions.
I'm abstaining, John. I wasn't at the meeting.
Oh, you weren't at the meeting. Okay. All right. So all but Andrew. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the HLA invoice for $2,769. So allow me to give a little bit of an update kind of on the project status and funding and where we are and things related to that. So this invoice will bring us up to the full amount of the contract, $98,500. HLA has actually spent additional time above that on the project, but with discussions that we've had with them, I had a couple of discussions with Dan Gardner. They've agreed they're not going to charge anything in excess of the fixed contract amount. So the work that they're doing now to help finish the project up and get the plan finalized are pretty much going to be absorbed by them rather than having any invoice issued to the town. There was a little bit of a disconnect where they issued a couple of invoices that would have put us up over that amount, and it was I think inadvertent on their part in that they weren't communicating most effectively with what I call their office accounts people. So their finance team wasn't talking to the project team in the midst of the whole COVID thing. They weren't together the way they typically would be. But I worked it out with Dan, and as I said, they've agreed that they're going to fully complete the project up to their level of professional standards, which we think is a pretty high level, without exceeding the project cost amount. But this invoice will bring us right up to that threshold, and we'll continue working with them until we finish completing the project. So anyone have questions on that? And everyone is muted, so you'll have to unmute your microphone if you have any comments or observations regarding that. Seeing none,
this is Marlene. I'm good.
Okay. Seeing none, the thing would be to someone to make a motion to approve invoice 4764 of July 16th, 2020 for $2,769.
I make a motion to approve invoice 4674 for $2,768.75.
Second that.
All right, so we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so it's unanimous. And I'll continue to keep track of kind of where we're spending time and what we're spending time on. as I typically do, I did look at the invoice and ensure that it was, footed and the right people were on the project. The time looked reasonable. The activities looked reasonable based upon what's been going on. So, item 4 is to provide an update to you all about the town leadership discussion, and a lot of this was contained in the March minutes that we had circulated. But just a quick synopsis of it, in late February, we did ultimately meet with the first selectwoman, took her and her administration, Tom Bremer and Jackie Bertoloni, and the first selectwoman through the subject matter expert report that we've published up on the site, and took them through the presentation that kind of, summarized it. We just to, get them kind of in the boat with us. It was the first time we really had met with anyone from the new administration, since they were sworn into office. So, any questions on any of that? I think we had covered that in the March meeting, but I just wanted to kind of refresh everyone's understanding of where we are and where we're trying to go. We're going to try and, kind of move forward with the plan. So let's move on to the 5th item, which was to kind of describe the steps that we've done to develop the draft plan that we circulated for you all to review. It was a little bit of a challenging undertaking because to do this sort of remotely with this whole COVID thing and the economy and the financial markets and the social challenges, social equity challenges that all were going on, we were trying to figure out the right way to try and go through this. But to get where we have with the draft plan, we've gone through 2 iterations of updates to the plan. Jay, Marlene, and I kind of worked through first draft that we got from HLA, added information to it, had a review session with them, did edits, tweaks, etc. And Jay, maybe you can jump in and just help refine kind of the recollection of this. And we got the plan back. We went through it again, gave them back further edits, updates, and content, things like the prologue section, the call to action. Those were things that didn't exist in the first draft that we then developed and provided. So, Jay?
So, yes, I'd like to differentiate the content that was net additional, which is the list of things that John just went through, the prologue, acknowledgements, the statement about some of the major events that have transpired, and, statements to that effect. So I want to differentiate, excuse me. I want to differentiate between what I would consider new content versus the edits we provided, which were really based, what we went through, the process we went through, is we actually audited the SME summary. We used that to basically check to make sure HLA hadn't missed anything. And, because while, they're a professional consultant and they're living up to their word in terms of doing everything that they originally committed to do, they're still, they're kind of running a little tight, and there's been some time that's transpired. So we wanted to make sure that they actually captured everything that we obtained from, the citizens of the town of Fairfield and the subject matter experts. So really the process we went through was more of an audit of HLA's document to make sure that they captured everything that was in the SME summary. And that actually took 2 reviews. So the first one, they really did miss a fair amount. There was some comments about the names of sections and things like that. But I don't want anybody to think that we submitted new content. It wasn't any new content. It was just auditing the document to make sure that they hadn't, missed anything that was, that we all worked so hard to gather. The new content are those sections that John went through. So I guess that's the only thing I wanted to clarify, John.
And the material that I circulated is the draft plan as it stands now, and I also circulated a second document, which is what we're calling the subject matter expert executive summary. And we found that document helpful because trying to read through the 16-page SME summary kind of get lost sometimes. So what we did was try and net out all the extraneous content out of that and squeezed it down to the 5 or 6 pages that's in that executive summary, to try and allow us, a better kind of reading document of the subject matter expert stuff so that we can help guide the development of the strategy with that information. So I guess just for the people that hadn't seen that before, Andrew, Justin, Kristen, did you guys read through that? Did that ring true to you, the subject matter expert executive summary?
Yes.
Yep, I didn't have any issue with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have
One of
any
the
issue
things
with it.
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Andrew?
I read through it. I didn't have any issue with it.
Okay. Because we haven't circulated that document widely. And I'm just wondering if it might be helpful, since so much time has transpired, to possibly leverage that to refresh people's understanding of what was covered in the subject matter expert sessions and what were the major kind of findings of that, without getting lost in what day the meetings were held, who attended, what pre-work was done, because it's just too much information. So I think if everyone's okay with that, to possibly use that to kind of help refresh people's understanding of what was covered in the subject matter expert session, I think that would make sense. So.
Well, actually, John, I mean, I'll let other people speak for it. I read through it, and I remember it brings up memories. And once you get through this summary document, to me, it was all like, I think it was fine. I think this was a good summary. I personally don't feel the need for another summary or to go through it. And I also would like to take the opportunity to thank you, Jay, and Marlene for all of your hard work during this. I guess it's like 6 months since we last spoke. So thank you all very much for carrying the ball during that period and doing all this hard work. It's really appreciated.
Well, good. Glad to do it. Thank you for that acknowledgement. I very much appreciate it. So let's move from the subject matter expert discussion to the actual plan. Give me some, reaction to the plan, the major elements of the strategy that are in it. I have a couple of things I'd suggest we might consider doing with it, but I want to hear people's reaction to that plan document as it stands right now. It's a big document. It's a long read. There's a lot of background material, a lot of demographics, and that is what it is. But moving into the plan component of it and the implementation plan, I'm curious what people's reactions to it are.
I thought it was great. It's very easy to read. I liked the format. I think that people can find the things that they're interested in, which is the key with the strategic plan. The implementation plans, I'm assuming.
Kristen, if you could talk up just slightly.
Excuse me?
Can you speak up just slightly? My audio of you is not the best.
Well, also, Justin, could you go on mute? Yeah, that'll help. Okay.
I thought that can you hear me better? Is that better?
Yes. Yep. Definitely better.
I thought that it was very well laid out, very easy to navigate. I think that people can find what they're interested in and dig deeper if they choose to find out, next steps or where they want to get involved. So I thought it was great. The implementation plans, I'm assuming, will just be done by like the Board of Ed or the Planning and Zoning Committee and things like that, because they would be the ones who would be, implementing whatever steps or figuring out within their guidelines what they can do. But I think this is a great document. I think that a lot of this holds true. A lot of my clients right now are going back, looking at their strategic plans post-COVID, what's relevant and what's not. I think there's enough here that a lot of the main things that people are concerned about have been addressed. And I think the town boards can, begin taking action now, and maybe in 12 or 8 months, we revisit this and ask formally to revisit this and make sure that there's nothing that's substantially changed post-COVID that needs to be amended or addressed. But I think this is wonderful. Great job, and thank you.
Okay, Justin, Andrew? You're both still on mute if you're...
Yeah, I didn't have. I've done it my first scan over the plan, and I would agree with the sentiment that it's laid out really well, and it's structured well. And it's definitely very legible. So unfortunately, I don't have many edits or enough in-depth reading to have suggested edits to the plan or the formatting of the plan. Nothing stands out as a red flag to me through reading through the document. And no, it's well done. It really is well done. One thing I did want to ask when I was looking through this, and it is a recurring theme that we had talked about, and maybe it's just been my memory has atrophied a little bit towards it. The addressing of affordable housing in the town, and the whether it be the plan of conservation and development, or how the town can go about addressing that issue without me providing an opinion on the issue, but addressing that issue, that it is a recurring issue, item that has come up in many different aspects. Maybe you or Jay or Marlene could refresh your memory about in which SME forum was that discussed, or was that addressed, and is that a potential hole? Because scanning through this, it didn't seem like we had addressed and how to prepare for that, whether it be a better zoning code, an affordable housing plan, or something of the like. And I know people have, I don't remember how that was, how we had looked at that and been, that had been discussed in previous forums.
Yeah, that topic of affordable housing has come up very strongly in this whole COVID time period. Like, there have been a number of different affordable housing developments that are going through planning and zoning now. In the subject matter expert sessions, we didn't have a specific deep discussion on affordable housing, realizing that we do have an affordable housing plan, we have an affordable housing committee, and we have affordable housing zoning requirements as part of our plan, so that any new developments of greater than, I don't know the exact number, 10 units, needs to have at least 10% affordable, and they've been actually inching that up to 12 or 14% in certain circumstances to try and help the town achieve their affordable housing moratorium points, which will protect us better from 830G types of development. We didn't get in any of the subject matter expert sessions into a deep discussion about that specific topic.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is, I recall it did come up in the education SME session from the standpoint that the town's approach to affordable housing is creating the situation at McKinley, right? Because that's where a lot of minorities end up, because that's where the affordable housing. So I think what came out of that session, and unless I'm wrong, the TPZ session, was that we need to spread the affordable housing broader. The affordable housing developments need to be spread in other areas of the town. We didn't get into picking parcels. We didn't get into any other kind of detail other than noting that we're gonna continue to create a problem for BOE if the town continues to allocate all the affordable housing to one area of the town. I think that's about as far as.
The real challenge, though, is from an affordable housing standpoint, the developers come in and they try and do, a heavy, dense type of development on certain areas, and certain areas of the town, the land values allow them to be able to make the economics of their thing work. Not that the town is directing anything on where affordable housing, where the town, is trying to cram it in someplace. That's definitely not true. This is really being driven by where developers wish to come in. But, the one key thing that did come out of the subject matter expert session was the town being more proactive in coming up with ideas and designs for certain areas, certain parcels of land in the town, and that have developers come back with their ideas for that would make it the right thing for the town, because it would have been thoughtful development, and the right thing for the developer so they could have a successful project. Really about all I can say about that.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm not trying to solution here either. I know that, you had in the prologue, that was an appropriate prologue in the plan, to sort of address that, a lot has either changed, or the viewpoint on issues and the circumstances have changed over the past 6 months, and it would behoove us to not dismiss that. It's just the plan wasn't necessarily written directly to address those, and I just wanted to make sure that that is that we're aware of that, that there is going to be, it's an active issue. It was an active issue before COVID and the racial equity demonstrations started. That affordable housing on both sides of the issue is tenuous, and so I want to make sure that we're able to respond to that appropriately. So
right. Well, I think that the trademark development, if you just pick trademark 1, they have a certain number of affordable units in it. Trademark 2, I think, has an incremental number on top of what typically would be ascribed as 10%. And I think that other new development that is being, planned for portions of the area around the train station might even be more than that. So I think it's trying to be worked into the developments as they come down the pipeline, but, developers taking advantage of what that, 830G state state law is has created a problem for the town.
Yeah. Okay. That's all. I'll let us move on to another topic.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
So Justin, your thoughts, observations about the plan?
Yep. Thank you. So I also agree with the previous sentiment. I think it's really well done. Thanks again to the three of you for all your work. So I guess I have two points. One on edits and best way to go about it. So I read the document pretty, I guess, in depth, both the documents that you sent, the SME summary, and I have comments on all of them that I'll send to you. Just in terms of how to do that, with not just my comments but everyone else's. My suggestion is maybe that the smaller edits just get done in line in the document, and you kind of pick the ones that you want. It's wordsmithing type of stuff. But if people have bigger issues, like perhaps what Andrew brought up, I have some as well that are bigger. Maybe we pick one or two and have a bigger discussion about them. I don't know if now is the time. Probably not, because we don't have all of us here. But that was my suggestion. one, and two, my specific comments on it, on the plan. While I like it, I was hoping it would be a little more direct or concrete in some areas. It's pretty high level, and in terms of having something a little more direct on to address something that I think is the larger issue here in town, which is we have to have a sustainable competitive advantage versus all the other towns. Basically, people come here, they either grow up in the area, or I think a large portion of our population moves here, probably from New York City is the number one place. They have a choice of where they want to live along the southern Connecticut or southern New York area. And so what is it that differentiates us, and how do we bring that out of this document a little more without going too deep into it? I'd like to see a little more of that in the document, but by and large, the rest of it I think is very good.
So two things that I noticed that, and
Good
Jay
point.
and Marlene, I didn't kind of discuss this with you guys, that in rereading the document again today or yesterday to just refamiliarize myself with it, a couple of things that came out in the subject matter expert thing, work and material a little bit more specific and strongly, and kind of get lost a little bit in the plan. Two of them is waterfront development, maybe three things. Waterfront development, an idea for developing downtown so it has greater economic substance for the town. And as part of that, this concept of the SMILE, the Senior and Millennial Integrated Living Environment, which we described in the subject matter expert stuff, which came out of a couple of different aspects of some of those sessions, that a little bit gets lost. So I'm just wondering on how to illustrate a couple of example big ideas as part of the plan. And I was curious what people's reaction to that idea was, and
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. So that's what I was
That we,
thinking. No, go ahead. Sorry, Marlene.
sorry. I had to look back at some of the other plans that we looked at, but there was one plan in particular, and I don't remember who it was, that they did a really good job of sort of outlining some of those key topics in the formatting that they did. I'll go back and take a look to see which one that was, but it brought a few big points to the forefront.
So
Justin,
I'll just say as a as a sales executive for 30 plus years, Justin, I have to apologize because every single time I've read through one of these things, I've always asked, so what is the strategic differentiation? And sometimes you get buried in the tree. So thank you for picking our head up. I couldn't agree more. And in terms of the key differentiating features of the town, I would absolutely agree that committing the town to multi-generational housing, creating these visions for communities, specifically the waterfront, are key differentiating factors. So I would definitely welcome the idea of going back and reworking the document so we can pull a lot of that out. So good suggestion. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. I guess thinking out loud, one thing I struggle with in this document is kind of how far it goes. And so in my head all along, I've had this vision that it actually came up with a plan. Like, I don't know what the right answer is. It would have to be a bigger group decision, right? But just picking one, John said SMILE, which I've not heard that acronym before, but something like that, where you have a downtown, and suggesting actually in this plan, hey, this is what we recommend that you do as a town. Now, the town then has a choice whether they want to follow along that or not, or backing off and making it a little more general, somewhat more like this document is, and maybe offering up with 3 different ideas, and then letting in the future either the next generation of SBC or the town taking kind of that and running with it. So I've always struggled with that a bit in my own mind. So I'm thinking out loud, but that is one of the things that that I question. You know, where do we want this document to be? Do we want it to be really specific, like, hey, we think this is the best idea, do this, or here's some ideas, next generation, run with it, and I'll leave it at that. But that's one thing that I've struggled with.
Let me react to that. If we had a couple of these ideas of a smile or a smile as part of a downtown development, waterfront development, if we had people on the committee with the time and the background to develop, to pencil out what either or any of those would look like, I would say we should do that. But I don't think we're there. I think the couple of ideas we've identified, I think we need to then encourage the town to do that. Roll their sleeves up, vet and validate the ideas here, and find out if there's a real market potential for it. And then you need to take the next step of, well, who would you need to partner with? Because we as a town wouldn't be able to do it, but you might be able to figure out how to partner with development entities, governmental agencies that would work with you to help put some meat around those bones. But I don't think we've been commissioned with or staffed with the ability to go come up with, number validated types of development ideas.
That's a very good point, John. Thank you.
Right, but we do describe multi-generational housing, which is what that acronym refers to. And John, you remind me what the acronym stands for. But what I think we can do is feature that a little bit more, even if it's because it's in the document and it was in the SME sessions, as was waterfront development. So we might want to figure out a way to just pull that out a little bit more.
Right.
Because all that's in there, and those things would be key to differentiating the town.
They would be key, and I think there are 2 examples of truly big types of initiatives, groundbreaking, ground-changing types of initiatives that the town could consider. They need to be vetted further, but I think they're a couple of the bigger picture ideas of what we did come up with. So, the one point about sustainable competitive advantage, we do raise that in some of the things about the marketing message for the town, and better crafting and leveraging the marketing message, because there's so many different ones that the town has and uses inconsistently in different places. So that is one of the recommendations that is in the plan, to better hone that and leverage it for that competitive advantage versus other communities. Because, as I like to say, Fairfield has it all. We have waterfront, we have housing, we have affordability, we have good education system. And a lot of communities can say they have some of those things, but very few of them can say they have them all. Like Westport does have almost all of it, but they're a much less affordable community than us. So we have a big advantage there, just as an example.
So, John, I agree with that. I think that the issue is historically it's been commute time, right, versus quality of life, right? So the one out of all the numbers in the document, the one that I thought was kind of the key is in the industry and employer section, 19% of people in town remain here for work. So that tells you, 81% of people are commuting somewhere. I would guess the majority of those are New York City. Maybe 10% are going kind of to surrounding towns. There's some people that live here that work at Yale. But for the most part, I think we're talking New York City, maybe Greenwich. And so the trade-off is, as you live further out and commute times, which have only gotten worse, they're worse now than they were in 1950, you're trading the price of your house, basically the cost of your house and your cost to live there versus the commute time. And so I think everyone who moves to the suburbs from New York City is doing the same calculus. And so we have to make whatever it is you get here worth that price of your home. Like that's the trade-off. It is more affordable, but it's also further away. And of course, there are all the COVID arguments now. I don't think everyone's going to stop going to cities to work. There will be some reduction, but I think this argument's going to still be retained.
I have talked to a couple of different people on that topic of commuting and offices in New York City, and I was surprised at what I heard. What a couple of different people said to me was they're not going back to New York City, and they know other people in other, financial firms anyway. They're looking to, they figured out how to work remotely from the house, and they may get a smaller office someplace else, but they're not planning on going back to New York City.
And that brings up a good point that we have some properties here that, Exide, for instance, that, could really, you never know. There might be some companies that are looking to move here now. So it could be a great opportunity for economic development. Perfect timing.
So you're saying GE topped the market when they left? Is that the point? Good timing. Sorry, I had to throw that joke in there. Sorry.
So where do we go from here? I think there's some edits, as Dustin described, to the document that will make it a little bit more readable, except that implementation table in the back. There's some things that repeat in there that I think if they get carved out, it'll read in a much more effective tabular form. So, I have some things like that, not changing any of the content. But the only other big thing was what we talked about with this, multi-generational development in the downtown area and something with the waterfront. So we can figure out how to, structure some of that thinking so it does not get lost and it's as part of the plan.
So, John, I will send you what I have as well. I didn't go completely in that direction, but I have some of the language around differentiation that I'll try to clear it up a little bit more. But I wrote out, both in the margins of the PDF document, I made notes that can be read, and then about a page of notes in Word that can be copied and pasted and edited. That might be a start for that.
Okay, great. That's super. Thank you. Any other comments or suggestions on? So where do we go from here? Let's say I can magically gather up any and everyone's edits and, pack them into a nice little snowball and get it back to HLA so that they can get it updated into the actual plan document. I may even ask them for a Word version of the document so we can just edit into it ourselves, but I'll figure that out. Do we think we're ready to start to socialize this with other people?
Yeah, I would say yes. I think we begin. I think we begin at the top, only because, we may get some initial feedback as we start to go back out to the public directly, it's as likely that, those folks will get the phone calls. So I would recommend going back to the stakeholders, if we can, at least to, share with them, the results of all this. Now that was 72 people. So I don't know that, I don't know how we want to go about that. I got to think about that. But, as best we can.
Still there.
I'm sorry?
I have to go through the list and see who's still there out of
Yeah,
the
right.
72 people.
Okay. So I don't know that we, maybe, I don't know. I got to think about how to go about doing that. That makes sense. And, but that's my thought, that we, provide feedback first to the stakeholders before, the general public.
Well, let me just introduce one other complicating factor to all this. We were going to have HLA present at a public sort of meeting, the plan. At this point in time, we can't convene public meetings like that. HLA can't travel here because they're in Illinois, and Illinois is one of the states that you can't, when you come to Connecticut, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks to be able to, then go around and meet with people. So, as far as getting this socialized, some of the steps that we were thinking about doing and taking as far as a public meeting and presenting and getting feedback from the public just is not going to work in this environment. So I think we need to get the plan as solidified as we can with what we've talked about, and certainly socialize it from the top down, meaning I think we need it to update the first select woman and her administration, and then maybe get her suggestion on how to move it forward as far as, getting more feedback from people. But, once this starts circulating, if you give it to, you mentioned 72 stakeholders that we interacted with. Let's say you gave it to 20 of them. Well, then that's basically the same as giving it out to the entirety of the town, because you're just not going to control its dissemination at that point.
Yeah, I think it's more of a courtesy thing than, I agree. Once you get it out beyond the very top leadership, it's out in the public. Now, HLA does owe us a community, we call them community workshops. We're not going to be able to do that, but they do owe us a presentation to leadership and a presentation to the community. How we execute on that, the fact that you have to do it via WebEx or some other way, is how we're going to have to do it. I mean, that's the that's the reality of the environment we're now in. So we got to think through that. But the reason I really thought we might want to reach out, so we go to the first selectwoman first, get her feedback on who else, what other stakeholders. But I think it's more of a courtesy thing that we go to them.
I think that if, definitely go to Brenda and then find out who the key department heads that she wants to see it first. And then I would love to see HLA do a taped presentation like they would have done to the public, that we could host on the website and we could promote that it's there. And this way, and then direct people directly to the plan after that. I think people are used to this now. It's been 6 months. We know that we can't all meet. And I think that, they can do that at their location. We can load it into, we can put a link on the town site, a link on our site. We can promote it through social media. And this way we know we're getting the information out there. I think that would be a great way, to adjust to the post-COVID reality that we're in.
Okay, let me think on that, and then maybe have a discussion with HLA and what capabilities they have on being able to do something like that. I just know from trying to technology enable just this simple little meeting that we have here was a bit of a challenge, but
And I wouldn't want it to be interactive. I would want it to be they tape what their presentation would be is just taped.
Informative, right?
There's no community feedback or anything at that point to them. People can submit feedback to us as a committee, but I would just want it to be the presentation they were going to give. They give it, it's taped. I mean, I don't care if we put it on YouTube. I mean, there are many ways that we can do this.
Yeah.
And if you need help
okay,
with
so
that,
it's more of the broadcast news rather than an interactive type of
yeah.
town hall
Yeah,
session.
it's an update so that we check that box that everybody was, you know, it was out there. People can watch it, listen to it if they want, and it checks that box in the world that we live in now.
Yeah, and I would agree. So it's a broadcast communication. It's not an interactive session. That would just be unwieldy.
Okay.
We could put it on
I'm in agreement.
Fair TV. I'm sorry about that, Andy. We could put it on Fair TV, and then we could host it on, you know, some place that people could access it as they chose to.
Yep, 100% agree.
Okay.
It should be able to accommodate it. They don't have to fly out here and stay here and do all the expenses, so they should be able to accommodate some time to put together a little bit of let's call it a semi-polished video of you know, walking people through the plan for a little bit. So
Exactly.
I mean, that's actually not unlike what we've done at each one of the other big interval phases where we presented to the Board of Selectmen in a public meeting, taped on Fair TV, the synthesis of the major community outreach section and the subject matter expert session, and we did it. Actually, we didn't do the subject matter expert session because we had changed administration, but you know, we've given them that quarterly update, so not unlike that. So, all right, let me think on that.
One of the things too, John, is you could definitely get on to the Board of Selectmen agenda to, you know, to start getting this in people's heads again and sort of give the promo of what's to come.
Right, right. All right, well, now that I know we have a reasonable plan, I can think about what kind of, you know, executive level presentation we can put together that we can then use for that. So I'll give that some thought as well. Let's see. Item 8 on the agenda, just kind of a catch-all. Any questions on kind of process, you know, what we have, you know, activities I think we kind of talked about, coordination with other town entities and commissions, we've talked a little bit about that. So I think we've kind of covered all the points that I had jotted down here. Anyone have anything else that they want to try and cover tonight? Okay, and then item 9, public comment can be submitted to, if the public is listening, to the email site that you can get to through the Strategic Plan Committee. It's spc@fairfieldct.org, but you can get to that link through the Strategic Plan Committee website. There's a click on there, and that will go to us. And then if I get emails, I will, you know, synthesize them and circulate them as appropriate, specifically as they relate to content of the plan. So, Jay, anything else that you can think of? No? Okay.
No, just you know, thanks for everybody calling in, and look forward to seeing you at some point live.
Right.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this is, how this sort of goes over with everybody, and because it feels like it was done a long time ago, you know, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the reaction from the first Selectwoman's office and her administration now. It'll be very interesting.
Right. Right. And I mean, truthfully, they have their hands full because this has not been easy for them with everything that's been going on. So.
Absolutely not. Yep.
And then now school's starting up, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when the little ones wind up back in class and whether they wear their masks and wash their hands and do all that other stuff, important stuff. So,
Yep.
without that, any final comments? Other than that, we can adjourn the meeting.
All right, thanks again for all your hard work, guys. I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, so
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye, and
Aye.
thank you very much.
Meeting adjourning at 6:57. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.